Hey YouTube, Alex here, and in today's video I want to answer the question, what are expats escaping? I'd say the first thing that a lot of people are escaping is the high cost of living. Of course, we've seen cost of living go up dramatically in the last few years. It's really just stressful when you want to enjoy your life, you want to have a nice place to live, you want to eat healthy food, you want to have some time to exercise. And it seems like as the cost of living gets higher and higher, that a lot of people seem to be struggling in the West, having to make more sacrifices in terms of standard of living. So I think for a fair amount of people in the Western countries, we're seeing that the standard of living is declining and people still want to have a decent life. And so they're looking at other countries, if not in the short term, in the long term in terms of planning, like, hey, you know what, I'm still in my working years right now, but maybe in 10 or 20 years, it's my goal to move over to Southeast Asia or to move to Latin America. These kinds of things are, I think, going to be more and more intriguing to people over time. Now, could things reverse? Could things become much cheaper in regards to incomes in Western countries? Sure, but is that likely? I personally don't think so. Just the way that the economy is set up, this perpetual growth economy, I think that it's antithetical to the growth of the economy to have things decrease in price. So I think that things will continue to get more expensive. People will have to struggle with debt in some cases to get the things that they need. And all these financial pressures will continue to compound and push a lot of people into wondering, hey, you know what, I heard it was pretty nice down in Mexico. Or for Europeans, hey, I heard it was pretty nice down in, say, Morocco or other European countries that perhaps are a little bit more affordable. Perhaps people from Northern Europe are taking a look at Southern Europe. And I think that that's only going to increase as cost of living continues to go up and people feel like their wages don't necessarily keep up, that long term they will eye some other places as potential places to live. So yeah, the first thing that I think expats are trying to escape is the high cost of living. I'd say the next one is going to be just loneliness, perhaps lack of relationships. I would say that especially for single guys, that it can be challenging and difficult to date as you get older. That's not the case for everybody, but I think some guys do have a bit of struggle in that regard, in terms of finding somebody that they're compatible with, somebody that they have shared values with. And I think that when you look at their lifestyle, I know for me as a single guy, when I'm back in the States, I spend a lot of time working. Now that's not 24/7, but that's most of my time is going to be spent working. And it doesn't really leave tons of free time to pursue a relationship. It does have me looking, for one reason overseas, like, hey, if I go to a place with lower cost of living, I sort out the financial aspect, then I'm likely to have time to invest in a relationship that I wouldn't have time to pursue back in the US, just trying to stay on top of responsibilities and chores and being busy all the time. For me personally, I don't really have much family back in the States, and that's not going to change. Certain things you can control, like putting yourself out there, meeting a significant other. Others you can't, right? Like your family of origin, can't change that as far as I know. And so, yeah, those two factors, pursuing another relationship and then also not necessarily having family relationships back home, although I do have some great friendships, and I will say that that's a big plus. The next one's going to be kind of a weird one. Doesn't really apply to me, but it may apply to you or some other expats. Some expats are trying to escape some kind of criminal record, or perhaps maybe they had some legal issue where, for example, they can't drive anymore. They might want to move to another country where they're not reliant upon driving to get around. Outside of New York City or San Francisco, you essentially have to have a car. And even in Manhattan, half the people have a car. And even in San Francisco, like 70% of the people have a car. It doesn't apply to me, but for some people, they may feel like also they have a certain aside from the criminal aspect, they may have a certain lifestyle preference that they feel like is not really acceptable in the West. Maybe they like to have tattoos. Maybe they like to have certain kinds of piercings. Maybe they're in the LGBTQ community. There's certain groups that may feel like, hey, you know what? I'm at best tolerated in the West, but in X, Y, or Z place, then people are willing to overlook some things that don't conform. The next factor is going to be toxic family systems, emotional baggage, and then bad memories. Some people come from a challenging background where they don't have the best memories of their home country. They think about perhaps traumatic events that happened, things that were extremely adverse life experiences, maybe led to different kinds of trauma or trauma responses, and they feel like they're often triggered when they're in their home state or their home city or where they're from. They feel like, oh, I remember this awful breakup I went through at that restaurant, or I remember, unfortunately, me and my parent used to go spend time here or there. And so you may feel like, well, if I go somewhere else, then I'm not going to run into all the triggers that I experience when I am back home. And I would say that one out of all of these applies to me. I find that it can be difficult to think about past trauma or process it or have a clear mind and maybe move on from it when I am back home in certain ways that I just don't have that experience here in Thailand. I really haven't been through much in the way of traumatic experiences here in Thailand, fortunately. I don't see a lot of that happening. Of course, I am an adult now with more autonomy than when I was a kid, but it's worth consideration. Number 5, and this is a bit more lighthearted, but bad weather. Some people, they may live in like Colorado like I used to, or maybe they live in North Dakota or Idaho. These places are really cold and they have winter for like half the year, but if they go overseas, there's options where they might be able to escape winter entirely. Here in Chiang Mai, I laugh because I see people wearing hoodies in like high 70s weather, right? Weather that would be considered warm or at least comfortable back in the States, but here it's considered quite chilly. So if you're somebody you're tired of winter, you want to be in a place that the winter isn't so extreme. I know Tennessee got tons and tons of snow recently. Then there are options. There are options that you can check out that don't have the winter weather, or conversely, maybe you like cold weather, you live somewhere that is quite warm and you want to go back to the cold weather. I know that's probably fairly rare, but you have certain places in Eastern Europe, setting aside the unfortunate conflict, that are going to be cold, have winter, and have that kind of cozy feeling that you might be looking for. So I hope this video has been helpful. This video has covered what are expats escaping. I think a lot of us get labeled as people who are trying to escape something, trying to run away from something. I thought I'd answer 5 of the things that just came to my mind when I wondered, what am I trying to get away from? And if it's been helpful for you, let me know down in the comments. If there is something that sticks out to you where you feel like, this is what I'm trying to get away from, then let us know. And definitely hope you have a great year ahead. I'll see you soon.